Please don't forget the money, man.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny, daily counting every single one I'm seeing.
And just like that, the Golden State Warriors are golden again, winning their 4th championship in 6 games over the Boston Celtics. To recap Game 5, the Celtics are really sloppy with the ball. Tatum didn't attempt his first shot. His first time out on the ball, he really struggled, as he did the entire series. He came back from the bench after a little rest and hit 3 straight shots, then disappeared into the second quarter. And the Celtics had no threes until the 4:30 mark into the second quarter of that Game 5 that they struggled mightily in. They started 0 for 12 from 3, then hit the next 7 3-point shots heading into the third quarter, and then finished out 3 for 12 to finish the game from 3. And that inconsistent offense in the finals. By the start of the second quarter, Steve Kerr had played 10 different guys in the rotation. Looney did have 3 fouls early, and that kind of affected his playing time. The Warriors themselves missed 14 threes at one point, stretching into the third quarter, and Steph Curry was a big piece of that. Now, the third quarter, the Celtics won, and they'd really struggled doing that in the series, but they outscored the Warriors 35-24. After an awful first quarter, though, they still trailed 74-75 heading into the fourth quarter. Now, Curry was on the bench the first 4 minutes of the fourth, and the Celtics only managed 2 points. Now, Curry didn't hit a 3 for the first time since November 2018, a 233-game streak. He was 0 for 8 from the game, 7 for 22 overall, but finished with 16 points. The Warriors still managed to wrap up that Game 5, 104-94, and that's when it started to look real for the Warriors. Wiggins was 0 for 6 from 3, but still hit 12 field goals and finished with 26 points and double-digit rebounds for the second game in a row, as he easily looked like the second best player on the court for the Warriors, maybe the best in Game 5. Thompson hit 5 3-pointers and finished with 21. Gary Payton had 15 and showed up. He had some problems certainly earlier in the series. Jordan Poole was 3 for 6 from 3 with 14 points. And Draymond Green finally came alive in Games 5 and 6. In Game 5, he had 8 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. The Warriors finished 9 for 40 for 22.5% from 3 and lost the rebounding battle, but the Celtics had 3 times as many turnovers, losing the edge 18-6. Now, they did shoot 12% better from 3. That only counted for 2 more shots. Tatum finished with 27 points on 50% shooting, along with 10 rebounds and 4 assists, but finished with a negative plus-minus as he struggled the entire series. Of course, that being one of the headlining stories. Smart had 20, Brown had 18 on a miserable shooting night, along with 5 turnovers. Robert Williams had 10 points, 8 boards. Only 10 points came off the bench, and 4 is all that they really got during time that mattered. A couple 3-pointers came in garbage time from guys that were playing off the end of the bench when the game was in hand already. So that was Game 5. Now, Game 6 in Boston, you still felt that the Celtics could tie up the series if the Warriors didn't quite come out with fire in their bellies. But that's exactly what happened. It was a double-digit game at first, but the Warriors clawed back to within 5 at the end of the first quarter. Curry, Thompson, Green, Poole each had 5 points and had a combined 5 3-pointers in that first frame. Tatum and Brown each had 7 points, so all the key contributors were involved on both sides of the ball. You could still tell it was going to be a rough evening for the Celtics, and the Warriors really looked like they were going to run away with it, and that sure translated into the second quarter. Golden State led by 15 at the half after outscoring the Celtics 27-17 in the second. Brown had 7 points on 2 of 7 shooting in the second frame. Williams and Tatum each had 4 points, as poor shooting and 8 turnovers really crushed the Celtics. The Warriors defense just did a great job of disrupting that offense for the Celtics. Clay, Curry, Wiggins each had 7 points. Poole had 6. He really provided an additional scoring boost for the Warriors as they really flipped the script in the last few games of the series. The Warriors were 10 for 23 from 3 at the half, and the Celtics were 3 for 14. Now Boston closed the gap to 10 after the third, thanks to 4 or 5 shooting from Brown and Hal Horford for 10 and 12 points respectively. But it was clearly the Celtics' game to lose at that point. Clay did go 0 for 5 from 3, 0 for 5 overall in the third quarter. Curry hit 3 threes for 9 points to lead the Warriors, as they only hit 8 shots altogether in the quarter. And he dropped another 13 points in the fourth. And outside of 10 points from Jaylen Brown, the Celtics were combined 6 for 16 shooting. So the Warriors just ran away in the fourth quarter. They only outscored the Celtics by a couple points, but it was an accumulation of just a rough game and poor shooting from Boston altogether. Final was 103-90, and the Warriors won another ring. Curry, after a big 3 in the third quarter, was pointing to his ring finger for his 4th ring in just a major victory. He finished with 30 points, 6 threes, 7 boards, 8 assists. Wiggins had 18 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, and 3 blocks. Clay had 12 on 5 of 20 shooting. Not a great night for him. Green had 12 points on 5 for 10 shooting and hit 2 3 balls, his first of the entire series, as he, was possibly going to be a candidate for benching earlier in the series. He had a few moments where he was swapped out for more offensive firepower for a few games, and he really pulled through in games 5 and 6. Jordan Poole added 15 points as well. So Curry won his first Finals MVP. He averaged 31.2 points per game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals per game. He shot 48% from the field and 43% from 3, averaging just over 5 attempts, not 5 makes per game on just over 11 attempts. So he's adding Finals MVP and 4-time champion to the resume of an 8-time All-Star, 8-time All-NBA, 2-time MVP, 2-time scoring league champ. He's averaging 24, 6, and 5 during the regular season, 27, 6, and 5 in the playoffs for his career. He is 20th all-time in playoff points with 3,570. Other than Elgin Baylor, who's played just as many games as Steph has played at this point, at 134, everyone above him on the list has played at least 11 more games in the playoffs. Only Kevin Durant at number 8 on the list, with 4,559 points, and LeBron, by far number 1, with 7,631 points, are still active. He's played 4,999 playoff minutes, less than half of LeBron at over 11,000. It's 51st in league history. It's actually below Draymond at 48, with 50-80, and Clay at 36, with 53-62. Now, it's not necessarily relevant, because right now it's kind of looking like how far up is he going to move in the list of points relative to how many seasons he has left and what kind of runs they're going to make. But he's actually much further down in games played, obviously, and minutes played relative to his accomplishments. And he can easily bump Tony Parker, who's number 10 on the list, and move into that top 10 with a couple more runs or an elongated career, several more years yet to play, and at least a handful more series with decent, point averages, the high teens at least. Now, Steve Kerr now has 9 rings, 5 as a player, 4 as a coach. So he's up there with the all-timers as well as far as coaching staffs. He's just below Phil Jackson with 11, Red Akbar with 9, John Kundla with 5. He coached the Minnesota Lakers from 1949 to 1954, somewhere in that range. He won the 49, 50, 52, 53, and 54 championships back when there were probably a dozen teams in the NBA or ABA at that point. And Pat Riley and Greg Popovich each have 5 as well. So he's currently alone in 6th place for most championships as a coach. And that is good for 2 of them aren't in the modern era. Red Akbar, obviously, the legendary Celtics coach in the 50s and 60s. So in there with Popovich, Phil Jackson, Pat Riley, who last coached the Miami Heat in 2006 as modern-day coaches. No one's currently sitting with 3 rings. There's obviously a drop-off to several coaches that have 2 rings. As far as people all time, rings for people who have been involved in the NBA, coaching, players combined, that kind of deal. Red has 9. Sam Jones as a player has 10. And Bill Russell has 10 as a player, obviously, the great Bill Russell. Phil Jackson has 11 as a coach, and in any other combination. So he's tied with Red for 4th most rings ever won in any capacity. Actually, Red's credited as a general manager as well of the Celtics during their great run, so that gives him 15 total that he's credited with. So that moves him ahead of Kerr, but it only drops Kerr from 4th to 5th if you're looking at that capacity as well. But he's in just rarefied air in that capacity with his combination of ring earnage at that point. The rest of the Warriors, Andrew Wiggins averaged 18.3 points per game and 8.8 rebounds after 2 excellent rebounding performances in games 4 and 5, but overall did a great job on the boards. Second best player in the series overall, I would think, certainly second best for the Warriors. Thompson averaged 17 points per game, but shot horribly, 35% from the field and 3. Poole averaged 13 points a game, but had a negative plus-minus due to his poor defense most of the time. Jaylen Brown averaged 23.5 points, 7.3 rebounds, 3.5 turnovers. Tatum, 21.5 points, but shot 36% from the field and had 3.8 turnovers and had a new record high 100 turnovers combined in the playoffs. That's a new record. So I imagine all the talk that there was in the beginning of the season about Brown and Tatum splitting them up, there'll be more conversation about will they improve, how will they improve, what pieces do they need to add to really come along. The biggest problem was the shooting just kind of died. It just died. Smart was probably shooting too much, shoehorned into kind of the point guard position, signing the contract. I thought he was terrible there, but shooting too much. Jason Tatum, I don't know what happened to his confidence. Thought it was a shoulder for a while, but then at times he's getting pushed around, landing on that shoulder, hitting with that shoulder, so it seems to be okay. But too many turnovers, while on the other hand, Brown can't dribble. Tatum can't hang on to it. Brown can't dribble. So falling all over the place and not shooting a good percentage, a good chunk of the time. So and the bench just disappeared. So they're going to have to reassess a lot of things heading into this offseason. They're just not a shoe-in to walk back to the championship for the Eastern Conference, certainly, next season. Now, the only unhealthy team on that side of the bracket was the Milwaukee Bucks without Chris Middleton. So we can look back now and say, what if Chris Middleton was healthy? Of course, the Celtics were down 3-2 in that series. Jason Tatum stepped on the gas and won Game 6 and 7, including Game 7 on the road. The Western Conference was a little bit different. We had injuries all over the place, starting with the first series, the Nuggets. No Jamal Murray, no Michael Porter Jr. for the Warriors to play in that round, as they just kind of walked through. Second round, they still managed to lose a game by almost 30 points to the Grizzlies, a game in which Ja Morant did not play, but finished that series 4-6. You have to wonder what a healthy Ja Morant kind of turned that series a little bit. Of course, the Mavericks made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, where the Warriors, much like they did in 2019, played a team that maybe overreached. Of course, they swept out the Portland Trail Blazers in 2019, and this year they crushed the Mavericks 4-1, a team that could not match up at all with the Warriors. I thought that might be a little bit different, but the defense could not keep up with the shooters, and Luka Doncic still really needs assistance on that roster to fully flourish. Of course, we had injuries in other capacities as well, and we will see hopefully healthier teams next year, but you never know. Not to diminish what the Warriors have done here, but they certainly reap the benefit of a banged-up Denver, a banged-up Memphis, possibly still a banged-up Luka Doncic with the calf problem in that series. The Pelicans weren't fully healthy, no Zion all season. That team could be the kind of team that goes from a number 8 seed, barely making the playoffs this year, to a team that could be a 2 or 3 seed next season, or regardless of seeding, be a team that's a Western Conference, potentially final team next year, just on the flip of the switch, due to the teams, the trades that were made mid-season, and Zion coming back and picks being included, added to the team this year. Of course, contracts will have to be worked out with a number of guys and key pieces, but that could be the kind of team that could really flip the switch. But certainly this team made a great run, and we'll see what happens going forward. Gary Payton, Kevon Looney, two of the guys that may or may not be back next year. Wiseman, maybe we'll finally see him hit the floor. Maybe we'll see more Moody next year. But this team will be more about retention than replacing any pieces, I think. Boston is going to have to do some serious evaluating to make it back to this particular place that they're at now. The same night that the Warriors were celebrating, Drake was having a celebration of his own. He announced an album release hours ahead of time at midnight, the night that the Warriors won the championship Game 6. It was definitely planned, as we know Drake is intentional in everything that he does. He doesn't do many public interviews anymore or is involved in the public forum at all. So what you see on his social medias and what you hear in his music is carefully curated when delivering his messages. Case in point, Certified Lover Boy was released September 2001, and on that cover was a bunch of pregnant women emojis. 9 months later, we got Honestly Nevermind, that dropped June 17th, 2022. That's the title, Honestly Nevermind. CLB didn't get good reviews and lacked staying power, but it was probably over-criticized. He brought his typical A-listers, Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, Travis Scott, Future, Rick Ross, Lil Durk, who's made it to that level, Lil Baby, 21 Savage, and the typical variety, if you will, that's still very Drake, but has elements of other things as well. So you had rap and knife talk, R&B singing and Get Along Better, a dance record in Fountains, and a mass radio hit with a classic sampling and Way Too Sexy. I'm just not sure that classic Drake fans that have followed him throughout his career can listen to the same type of music that he makes now and like the content that he's been putting out recently. In the song Girls Want Girls, which is one of the biggest tracks on the album, it's catchy, but just comes across as misogynistic and derogatory and juvenile in this particular case. Saying You're a Lesbian, Girl Me Too is on the chorus if you haven't heard it. It's just something that can be changed simply for a track that is not horrible, but just has a ridiculous chorus. You can't even sing it out in public, really. It's just absurd. Really, it's normal Drake now, but he hasn't evolved over the years. I'm not necessarily saying that evolved Drake is what we want, but he does need to figure out what he's doing with his career going forward. He's in a weird crux where he either needs to evolve with the audience that's been there with him, or to kind of lean into what he's been doing, but kind of figure out how to not completely lose the folks who've been with him for his entire career and not kind of updating his trends that he's been rolling with. Just a weird crux that he's at. Because you could certainly lose fans in music like you can in TV shows. You can be good at the same thing over and over. Certainly, not everyone needs to evolve and branch out. You get criticism that way as well. But sometimes you need to refresh it a little bit. Change the way you're writing a little bit, speaking, evolve the way you're doing instrumentals. Do what you're doing better in some capacity. He's a father now. He has a son. Do we want to hear him rap and sing about how he's a father now? Maybe, maybe not. But some of these misogynistic views are not necessarily something that we want to hear all the time either, I don't think, especially when raising a little boy at this point that he's posting all over social media. Now, there were rumors of a summer mixtape following the struggles of CLB, but Honestly Nevermind is officially considered an album per Drake. The cover art is horrific. It's metallic looking, with color seeping out from below the words. Honestly Nevermind, the two words are stacked on top of each other in some kind of art that kind of looks like word art that was made in Microsoft Word 2004. It's really gross. I'm sure it's intentionally hard to make out at first, but it's just not necessary at all. The album is 14 tracks of dance hall music. Dancing music is what it's supposed to be. It's done with producers, though, not associated with creating dance hall music per se. So it's like dabbling in the genre, but not quite going all the way to really establish yourself as going outside the box in that particular area and fully experimenting. 40 is still on this album, and DJ Carnage, who's rebranded himself as Gordo, I believe he goes by now in the credits, but not necessarily established artists in this particular space. So you kind of get his toes in the water and a very bland mix of dancehall music. So walking through the track list briefly here, the first track is a throwaway intro. Track 2 is titled Falling Back and clocks in at almost 4.5 minutes long. Drake sings on all but 2, maybe 2.5 in these tracks. I don't mind singing Drake, but this song is way too long over a very boring mix that seems to be intentionally staticky and unnecessarily noisy. A music video came out for this track with him marrying, I think, 21, 22, 23 different women, which again lends to that why does it have to be overly misogynistic? And so why does it have to be like that? His mother is actually in the music video. It's just very, very strange. Tristan Thompson plays his best man, the NBA star who you almost don't recognize anymore. He's more known for his Kim Kardashian show appearances than he is for his appearances on the NBA court at this point in his professional career. And it's just a ridiculous music video. It extends very long because they try to play out the wedding sequence throughout the music video, I should say. It's just a long song extended to a long music video, and then at the end it shows each bride individually and gives their social media tag. So it's just a ridiculous, noisy, unnecessary piece of content that just isn't needed. But that track on the album leads straight into Texts Go Green that clocks in at over 5 minutes, but is an okay track after a few listens, I think. It's still too long, but it might be one of the stronger singing performances by Drake. It's not a horrible track. Might be one of the better tracks in the album, as far as I can tell from a few listens. Track 4 is called Currents, and there's way too much garbage going on this track for 2.5 minutes long. We have the bed squeaking sound that kills R&B songs. The squeaking. Some of the back vocals are just junk. If the track had Drake singing vocals over a simple, kind of muted instrumental background for the verses with a simpler change up in the chorus, it would have been much, much better. But the garbage crap we have going on in the chorus, just the gargle of instrumentals and stuff just kills the song, so it really sucks. It has pieces, it had elements, but it's garbage. Track 5, A Keeper, doesn't really live up to its title. It falls more in line with tracks 2 and 3, with the punchy dancehall sounds that you think of when you hear dancehall music instrumentally. Track 6, Calling My Name, feels like an interlude at just over 2 minutes long, with Drake singing for less than a minute, and about halfway through we flip to more of a dancehall instrumental, and we get the ad-lib vocals in the back saying, "Your pussy calling my name," being played over and over. And that leads right into the awesome track 7 called Sticky, which does refer to what you're thinking of after hearing that last lyric. And he's rapping about the kitty and how sticky it gets, and you can imagine from there, after starting off with more of his traditional boasts. So it's just not a very interesting track lyrically, and the instrumental is more aggressive, punchy dancehall, I guess I would say, but kind of a mess. I don't know, it's just a weird, sticky track, I guess. Track 8 is called Massive, which is not what you're thinking after dealing with the past 2 tracks. We're back to singing, dancehall, head-bopping music. It's over 5.5 minutes, but it's not awful for the flavor that he's going for. But somehow we still managed to get an annoying pitchy synth in the back that we could do without, but it leans very much on the dancehall kind of instrumental with some of the singing Drake lyrics coming in or out. It's probably one of the better songs on the album with the dancehall flavor that he wants to go to. Tracks 9, 10, and 11, Flights Booked, Overdrive, and Downhill, stay on that flavor, but are largely interchangeable after a few listens. Track 12, Tie That Binds. Yeah, say that 5 times fast. Now that adds a fun guitar throughout the track as well, although it's pushing over 5.5 minutes. But this is a better track as well on the album for what he's going for here. Track 13, Liability, has a vocoder over all of Drake's lyrics, so the whole thing is distorted. This is, I think, technically marked up as a singing track, but I believe he's technically rapping on some of it, but you can't really tell. I think it is a sing-rap mix, though. I think this track would have actually been better without the vocoder at all and just his vocals. We've got kind of a tambourine shaking vibe for the 808 hi-hats on the instrumental and kind of some atmospheric synths that really create an aggressive but kind of vulnerable space where he could have just used his normal voice lyrically to greater effect, his softer voice against the kind of a little more aggressive 808s, but was still with the atmospheric synths to create a kind of heavier hitting R&B kind of track. Similar to what Party Next Door does on a lot of his tracks, Drake's signee label mate, kind of like Come and See Me, a track that Drake is actually on with Party Next Door. I'm kind of feeling that kind of vibe. The final track, number 14, is Jimmy Cooks, which is just a rap track with 21 Savage on it. It's probably one of the best, it's probably the best track on the album, but really should have been a single for something else as it's a pure rap track. But overall, the project is, again, his producer 40 and DJ Carnage, who was rebranded, just working on the album here with a flavor of dancehall when you really could have hopped on with some producers that have worked exclusively in that area or more in that area to create a completely different sound instead of feeling like you've stuck a foot in or dipped some toes in that kind of area. So I do not like this project. I'm not sure that any of these songs will actually stay in rotation for me. And much in the style of Polymuse, the other project that I do with my cousin, I'm not sure that any of these songs would even be in the discussion to be one of the final tracks to make an all-time mix CD playlist of Drake tracks. None of these songs would make it. I don't think there's any way. I like too much of his earlier work. So overall, I think he's got 2 disappointing tracks, 2 disappointing albums in 9 months, and he should kind of consider what's next for him. He's still getting the massive traction and still an A+ star. I think we have to look in the mirror here if we're Drake and start to say, where do I want to go from here on a full project? Because we do know that he listens to his fans and his critics, and he very much does the one for me, one for them kind of system in making songs for the radio and his fans, and then tracks for himself as well. So we'll see what Drake does for projects coming up, but it could be another year plus for that. So hopefully we'll get features. He's still very active, of course. That's why we always hear him on different tracks. But I guess pull out your old Drake records because nothing much to see here, unfortunately. Go back and listen to Certified Lover Boy. See if there's anything redeemable there that you can re-add to your rotation. But not a whole lot here on Honestly Nevermind. You can certainly do that with this album.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny. Daily counting every single one, I'm seeing plenty. Level up and watch that beat turn into a